Okay, so welcome to another deep dive. I am your host, and today we are getting into something pretty heavy.
And I'm your resident expert, and yeah, heavy is definitely the right word for this one.
Right, usually on this show we are drowning in spreadsheets, tech trends, market data, the hard numbers, all the highly analytical stuff.
Exactly. But today we're looking at something completely different. We have a single source today, just one transcript.
Oh, what a transcript. Yeah, it's from a video monologue titled, "I'm 92, I need to tell you something before I go." And the speaker is a man named Frank. I gotta say, when you first sent this over to me, I was a little skeptical. I thought, is this just going to be another viral internet platitude thing?
I thought the exact same thing at first. But then I read it, and I read it again, and it's a lot to process.
It totally stopped me in my tracks. I mean, literally, I put my phone down and just stared at the wall for a minute, because he starts off with this incredibly stark image right away. Yes, he says he is standing at, quote, the edge of a cliff, which is obviously a metaphor for death. But the way he frames it is what makes this deep dive so necessary for us to unpack.
Right. He's not looking down into the abyss. He says he's turning around at the edge to look back at the party. And the party is life.
Exactly. It's the chaotic, messy, beautiful thing that you and I and everyone listening to this right now are currently standing right in the middle of. And he's not looking back to wave goodbye or, give us the thumbs up. He's looking back to yell at us.
Oh, he is definitely yelling. He basically tells us that we are delusional. He says, quote, "You are living a lie."
That hits hard. You are living a lie. And let's be clear, the lie isn't about the economy or politics or anything like that. The lie is about time.
Yeah, the core theme here, his main thesis, is that we walk around with this arrogant, comfortable assumption that our time is infinite. Like we have this endless supply in the bank. We treat days like they're cheap, disposable commodities.
Right. It's like we think we have a limitless credit card for time, so we just keep swiping it, just swiping away.
And his mission, and really our mission for this deep dive today, is to unpack these hard facts he presents about money and career and time to shatter that illusion. He wants to wake you up before the bill comes due.
Exactly. But to really understand why this matters, we have to start where Frank starts. We have to talk about Jack.
Ah, yes, the story of Jack. This is the part of the transcript that really haunts me. It's the archetype of the modern tragedy. Really, it's the story we are all terrified of living, even if we don't realize it.
So let's set the scene for the listener here. It is 1968. Frank and Jack are best friends, and Frank describes Jack as a shark. You can just picture this guy, right? He's smarter than Frank, richer, better looking. He walks into a room and the whole energy shifts.
He's the guy who has it all figured out. Oh, absolutely. We all know a Jack. I mean, I might even try to be a Jack on some days. He's the high achiever, the planner, the guy with the perfect roadmap. So they're celebrating a massive deal that Jack just closed. They're having a drink. Jack is smoking a Cuban cigar, leaning back in his leather chair. Very Mad Men era vibe. Very much so. And he lays out his master plan to Frank. And this conversation right here is the pivot point of the whole piece. This is the moment where we really need to ask the central question. Why did this happen to Jack?
Right, because it wasn't just random bad luck.
No, it was a philosophy of life. Jack tells Frank, 5 more years. That's the strategy. The famous 5-year plan. He's going to grind for 5 years, hit a very specific financial number, and then he's done.
The sequence is so specific and honestly it's so familiar. He says, then he takes his wife Mary to Italy. Then he learns to paint. Then he starts living. He had deferred his entire existence to a future date. He was treating his life like a waiting room.
A waiting room. Sitting there reading old magazines, ignoring the present moment entirely, just waiting for his name to be called so the real life could finally begin. But the doctor never came out.
Number 3 days later, literally 3 days after this confident declaration with the cigar, Jack walks out of his office, grabs his chest, and hits the sidewalk. Massive heart attack. Age 42. Frank says he was dead before he even realized he was falling.
That is just terrifyingly young. He never went to Italy. He never painted a damn thing. And here's where Frank makes a distinction. He says the tragedy wasn't that Jack died, because as he bluntly puts it, we all die.
And that sounds a little harsh at first, doesn't it? But Frank is getting at something psychological here. He's distinguishing between biological death, which is inevitable, and what we might call existential death, which is self-inflicted.
Oh, that's a good way to put it. Jack had already sacrificed his current self to feed a future self that never actually existed. It's the difference between a life cut short and a life that never actually started.
A life that never started. That is just a punch to the gut. It forces us to ask again, why do we do this?
It's the illusion of control. Jack thought he could negotiate with time. He thought, if I sacrifice these 5 years, if I suffer right now, I am guaranteed a payout of happiness later. It's a highly transactional view of existence.
Exactly. You pay in misery now to buy joy later. But Frank's point, the hard fact here, is that the future is not a product you can put on layaway.
It really reminds me of how I operate sometimes. Like, I'll just get through this crazy week and then I'll relax. But then next week comes and it's something else. The goalposts just constantly move.
Always. And the universe clearly does not care about your 5-year plan. Frank actually went to Jack's office a week later to clear out his desk. And this detail right here gave me actual chills. He said Jack's calendar was booked solid for the next 6 months. His inbox was totally full of urgent messages.
That's the real world keeps turning reality check. We like to think our contribution is so vital that the machinery is just going to stop without us. I can't take a vacation. The place will fall apart without me.
Right, but Frank noted that Jack was replaced in 2 weeks. His clients forgot his name within a year.
Ouch. That is brutal to hear.
It is brutal. But let me play the other side for a second. It's also incredibly liberating. If you realize the machinery doesn't actually need you to grind yourself to dust, maybe you can just stop grinding. Jack sacrificed his now for a legacy that evaporated almost instantly.
That makes total sense. And Frank looks at us, the listeners, and he sees Jack. He hears us saying, I'll be happy when I get the promotion, or I'll take that trip when the kids are older. Frank has this quote that just stuck with me. There is no later, there is only now.
It's the absolute truth. If you're trading your now for a later that isn't guaranteed, Frank says you're basically making the worst bet in the history of gambling.
And yet, we all place that exact bet every single day. So if we're wasting our time, what are we wasting it on? That brings us to the second part, the delusion of materialism.
Right, this is where Frank shifts from the tragedy of the calendar to the absolute absurdity of the garage. He paints a stark contrast. Frank is 92 and he lives in a single small room. He has a bed, a chair, and a picture of his wife, Eleanor. That's it.
But he admits he used to be exactly like us. Big house, luxury cars, a garage full of toys. He calls it the clarity of the end game. When you're standing at the cliff, the value of objects plummets to zero. He says, I have never, not once, seen a U-Haul trailer following a hearse.
That is a bumper sticker right there. But let me unpack the economics. He calls our possessions future trash. Aggressiveness aside, it's true. We spend our life energy working to buy things that mostly just sit in boxes.
And when you die, your kids aren't going to cherish your gadget collection. They're going to hire some stranger to come in and throw 90% of it straight into a dumpster.
90% into a dumpster. Wow. I have boxes in my garage right now that I haven't opened in 3 years. I'm paying rent for my future trash.
Exactly. And the other 10%? Frank says it gets sold at a yard sale for quarters. That is the ultimate return on investment for decades of stress. A handful of quarters.
And yet we work ourselves to the bone for this. Frank talks about missing your children's lives, sitting in traffic in a car you're still paying off, to acquire things that end up in a landfill. He asks, why are you putting yourself down so far to buy it?
It's a cycle of madness. But here's the kicker. It's a socially acceptable madness. If you don't do it, people think you're weird. Which leads us to the third trap, the career.
Yeah, this is Frank's big victory story. It's 1979. Frank wins Businessman of the Year. This is the peak of the mountain. Walking up to the podium with thunderous applause, he felt like a god.
But then the scene cuts. It's later that night. The party's over. He's sitting alone at his kitchen table, drinking scotch, staring at this piece of engraved glass. The realization hits him. The applause stopped. The people at that dinner didn't actually care about him. It was purely transactional.
Entirely. And the cost? He neglected the people upstairs, his actual family, for a month to win that trophy. He missed his son's games, his own anniversary. The trophy is in a box in a basement now, but the regret stays with him at 92.
This is where he drops the hammer. Your career is not your legacy. It's a transaction. It will not hold your hand when the lights go out.
Such a heavy line. But devil's advocate here. We do build real relationships at work. Is Frank saying all of that is fake? That my entire career is meaningless?
I don't think he's saying the work is meaningless. He's saying the institution doesn't love you back. We think the company values us like a family. But Frank says, no, you are selling hours of your life to build someone else's castle. If you drop dead, your job is posted online before your obituary is even printed.
It's all about the exchange rate. Don't mistake the transaction for love. So, what is actually left? What does a 92-year-old man value when everything is stripped away?
It is a very short list. Nothing you can buy on Black Friday. He doesn't replay business deals. He replays Sunday mornings having coffee with his wife. He replays the sound of his daughter laughing.
He says, the only things you get to keep are the things you gave away. Love, time, connection. That is the actual definition of wealth.
Step 1. Kill your ego.
Frank says we are terrified of looking foolish, but let me liberate you. Nobody is watching you. They're too busy worrying about themselves. Their judgment will rot in the ground right next to them. If you're invisible, you're free.
Step 2. Practice the last time. This is pure stoicism. Frank says you need to remind yourself that one day you will do everything for the last time. Picking up your child, kissing your spouse, drinking coffee.
And the kicker is, you don't know when that day is. It forces saturation. If you know this might be the last cup of coffee, you actually taste it. It turns the mundane into the sacred.
I felt personally attacked by that. I checked my notifications while reading his transcript. Frank is yelling at us to stop being zombies. He says, "Go outside, feel the wind, and forgive your enemy." Not for them, but because you don't have time to carry the luggage of hate.
I felt personally attacked by that. I checked my notifications while reading his transcript. Frank is yelling at us to stop being zombies. He says, "Go outside, feel the wind, and forgive your enemy." Not for them, but because you don't have time to carry the luggage of hate.
That's the real question. Don't trade your now for a later that isn't guaranteed. Eat the good food. Buy the plane ticket. Say I love you first. The clock is ticking.
Put the bags down. Most people never actually live. They just exist until they expire. If Frank looked at your calendar this week, would he see Jack?
Frank's final sign-off is, "I'm tired now. Go live."
Such an incredible way to end. It makes me want to turn off this audio and do something that matters.
And you probably should. But before you do, if you knew for an absolute certainty that today was the last time you would ever speak to the person you love most, what would you say differently? Why aren't you saying it anyway? The waiting room is closed. Go live.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive. Go live.